This week marks 1 year since the attack, which took the lives of 4 Americans, including the U.S. Ambassador, Christopher Stevens. And we're back now with the panel. Well, 1 year after Benghazi, no one has been arrested for the act, the justice that the president promised a year ago. And the 4 State Department officials who were found accountable and put on administrative leave have all been reinstated. Brit, where are we?
Well, in terms of the administration, we're nowhere. The administration hasn't, as you suggest, caught anybody, done anything, really. We're not sure how intense the investigation is. The investigations go forward on the Hill, but at a glacial pace. Benghazi remains a kind of piece of unexploded ordnance. It may remain buried and never go off, but it may blow up. We don't know, but it remains out there. There's still a lot of mystery about what happened that night and why, and about the response to it.
So there are legitimate unanswered questions that remain, but the investigations on the Hill have largely petered out. And I have to say this, there is a drumbeat among conservatives, including some at Fox News, to turn this into a full-fledged scandal, as opposed to a horribly tragic episode that killed 4 Americans, and that was clearly mishandled at the time and afterwards. When 241 Marines were killed in a terrorist bombing in Lebanon in 1983, Ronald Reagan wasn't accused of being involved in a scandal, misjudgment, miscalculation perhaps, and I do think that some Republicans, I'm not saying all, and obviously we'd all like to know more about this, including CIA involvement, are trying to use this as a weapon against Hillary Clinton.
Remember what was said in the aftermath of this. The whole thing was blamed on a video, which turned out to have nothing to do with it. I mean, there are elements of mendacity in what the administration did and said after this attack. That's what's given rise to the cry of scandal.
That's why I said the aftermath. That was a completely botched response to what was behind it. But you seem to find very impure motives in that, as opposed to perhaps incompetence.
Well, impure motives. You could be both. I mean, well, look, this is not going to go away. I disagree with both of you on this. This fall, there will be there's a nomination of the State Department spokeswoman at the time who participated in the 100 emails.
Victoria Nuland.
Victoria Nuland has been nominated by the president to a Senate confirmable post. This will be a chance for people to say on 9/54 on the Friday night, you said that neither you nor your building were comfortable with the answer on Benghazi, and that your building was talking to the NSS, the National Security Staff. So she going to be able to be asked, were you part of the authorship of the let's blame it on the video? You know, who at the State Department was talking to who at the White House? There's going to be a chance for Senate Republicans on the Foreign Relations Committee during the nomination process to get to the heart of the matter, which is who concocted this lie to the American people, who participated knowing that it was not the video, that it was a terrorist attack, and trying to sell it, who briefed the UN ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, to go out on the Sunday morning talks and talk about this. And I don't think this is going to go away as easily as people might think.
You persuaded by Brother Rove?
I certainly don't say it's going to go away. But I think a more useful thing would be not only to try to find out what happened, including there's a report from CNN that dozens of CIA operatives were on the ground that night, and perhaps the administration trying to not have that fact be disclosed, but looking forward, how do we prevent another Benghazi? Are we overreacting? Is the United States overreacting by closing all those embassies during those threats? I think that should not be lost in the debate, and not just what happened a year ago, but something like this should not happen again.
Howie raised an interesting question. Who was in charge of security? You know, the question of why was there no military response? Why were assets not immediately 5 o'clock in the afternoon Washington time? Why were aircraft not put into the air? Why was there no effort to get assistance onto the ground? Who was really responsible for the security at the consulate? There are lots of questions left unanswered here, and I think we may have one more chance for them to be answered during the hearings on Victoria Nuland. We'll see if the Republicans on the Senate do something about it, but my understanding is members are thinking through these questions and are asking these questions during the process.
Juan, there's no question about the fact that the president went around the country for several weeks this summer talking about phony scandals, and you don't have to scratch very far in the White House to find people who say this is just...
This is it.
That this is a partisan effort by Republicans to exploit a tragedy. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I think there's not one shred of evidence that the White House knew about this beforehand, that they covered up anything.
Knew about what?
Knew about this attack. There were all sorts of allegations up on the Hill coming from Republicans.
I don't hear that.
You know what? What really drives me is you've had an accountability review board come in, make 29 recommendations. State Department has accepted just about every one of them.
Never even spoke to the Secretary of State.
Look, the Secretary of State at the time, Hillary Clinton, has testified on Capitol Hill.
And dismissed
let me just
issue.
make one other point. The big argument coming from Republicans for most of this time was there was a stand-down order given from Washington or from the military command that we could have gone in and saved those people, but the stand-down order was given. Well, now we have Lieutenant Colonel Gibson, who was in charge of special forces in Libya, saying no stand-down order was ever given.
They just told them not to go. They didn't call it a stand-down order.
Okay, so in other words, then, we don't have anything. A year later, we do have an indictment, and Eric Holder, the Attorney General, has said more is coming shortly. But to make a scandal out of this, that's why you say this is not going away. Let me tell you, this has gone away.
No, it hasn't. The American people were lied to. Somebody concocted a deliberate lie that this was all the response. This was not a terrorist attack. This was a spontaneous reaction to a video that no one saw. The American people have a legitimate question: why were efforts not undertaken to save our people?
But the efforts were made.
No, they weren't.
Let's go back to your first point.
No, they weren't. They were simply not. With all due respect, no assets were put in motion. And as you just admitted, U.S. military on the ground in Tripoli were told, don't go to Benghazi.
No, there was no stand-on order according. What we have is don't go in after the fact when we don't know what you're getting into, and it could result in more American deaths.
Don't go. That's the important thing.
No.
Do not go.
The difference,
and remember what that Marine said.
Remember
what he said. He said it was the first time in history that he could remember that a member of the U.S. Foreign Service had more cojones than somebody in the military, and he was embarrassed.
Carl. Right. But Carl, you're all in the weeds here. The key point is
the death of 4 Americans and why they were allowed to die and why no one went to their aid is not in the weeds. With all due respect, Juan, it's not in the weeds.
What's in the weeds is the fact that you continue to prosecute this like there's some huge crime.
A deliberate lie to the American people.
Stop living in the past and trying to get after Susan Rice or whoever. This has nothing to do with the death of Ambassador Stevens.
Susan Rice or whoever. We don't know who is responsible for lying to the American people. Now, you may be comfortable with the American people being told a deliberate lie by the administration, but I'm not, and I think that we need to get to the bottom of it.
You can continue to raise your voice, but it does not speak to the heart of the issue.
Of course, clearly this is not over, as evidenced by the emotions at this table 1 year later.
And one more thing. Think of the list of, going around this table here, the list of questions that remain unanswered to this day are what make this still a legitimate topic for conversation. And meanwhile, I'm sorry to say that this is simply not over.
It's gone, baby. It's in your head. That's about the only place.
Thank you, panel. See you next week. And remember, our discussion continues. That was really quite a terrific conversation. Continues every Sunday on Panel Plus. You can find it on our website, foxnewssunday.com. We'll continue this discussion. I don't know. Actually, Brit's going to be in charge. He'll decide what they're going to discuss. Make sure to follow us on Twitter @FoxNewsSunday. Up next.